Hey everybody, welcome to your horoscopes for the week. These are the horoscopes for the week ending November 26th, which means if you are here in the United States, it's Thanksgiving week, which is lots of fun and very stressful all at the same time for most people. But I'm going to wish you a good one and hope that it turns out that way. I'm a little sick this week during this recording, so we're going to get through this as smoothly as we can. And we're going to go ahead and get started. And we're going to start as we always do with Aries. Again, we have all planets moving out of Aries. Jupiter is now 28 degrees in Pisces as it goes retrograde, which means it's a little bit farther away from that cusp, which is good. So not a whole lot of influence there, or very minimal influence. But let's focus on Chiron's influence this week. Chiron is what's called a dwarf planet. It does exist. Um, sort of the peacemaker between Jupiter, I'm sorry, not Jupiter, Uranus and Saturn, which are two completely different planets. And I know we talked about this a little bit last week, being that Uranus and Saturn are very much in a squared position right now, and Chiron and the zodiac happens to be in the middle, kind of trying to keep that peace, if you will, so to speak. But Chiron also is about change, and with focus on the past, that is very interesting because, of course, there's very few things about the past that you can change, but you can change your perception about the past, or you can change how you hold on to the past. In many ways, I see Chiron's influence very much in terms of those that are going through healing right now, those that are going through therapy right now. Chiron really represents those types of changes because we're not talking about change just to change. We're talking about change in order to grow personally, physically, spiritually, what have you. Of course, I say physically, obviously, if you're fully grown, you're not going to grow anymore this way. Of course, we all might grow this way because it is Thanksgiving. You never know. Bottom line for you, Rams, is this really is about looking back at the past with adult eyes. A lot of our past traumas and things that we hold on to a child's perception of those traumas. We hold on to challenges that we looked at from a child's point of view and not necessarily an adult's point of view. And this is a way to be able to flip that around and to see the situation for what it is. Does it take all the trauma away? No, but it does help so that you're not carrying around as much trauma or as much difficulty as you previously were. And that's what therapy is about. That's what healing is about. You can't change what happened, but you can change how you react to what happened. And this really is what Chiron is all about. And spending some time with your family may actually be helpful, or spending time with your family may be the reason why you start to develop this change. Is a lot of times if family is a part of that trauma, they often are triggers to that trauma as well. And those triggers happen in order to bring that to the surface so that you can sort of work through that. So that's what I have for you guys this week. And we're going to move on to Taurus. We still have Uranus in Taurus, and Uranus continues to be retrograde in Taurus this week, still in a square with Saturn. In fact, that's really the only influences that are gonna take place this week, outside of an opposition with the moon in probably we're looking about Tuesday. Yeah, we're looking at about Tuesday. Not just an opposition, but a T-square. My bad. I'm sorry. Forgot about that square with Saturn, right? Obviously, an opposition with Uranus. If it's already squared with Saturn, is going to be a T-square. Let's talk about that here for a minute. Focus is on how you think. And yes, I apologize. I am sick. Focus is on how you think this week. Saturn's focus is on self. The moon's focus is on long-term goals. And this is actually a very interesting sort of setup here, even if it is a challenge, which it is a challenge, honestly. Challenges actually happen for a good reason. They're there to really help us out. And when we are presented with a challenge, there's a lot to learn in that challenge, and that's really important when you think about it. um in terms of how you think about your long-term goals, but more importantly how you think about yourself, I think is what this comes down to, especially since that square with Saturn is going to last much longer than the T-square, which happens for about a day on Tuesday. um but we'll say this, okay? um how you think about yourself, your own motivation, what you can and can't do, that makes a huge difference in terms of whether or not you actually achieve your long-term goals. And if you're constantly thinking negative thoughts about yourself, then your motivation is just going to go down and down and down so much faster. So this week is a really actually a very important, or a very good time when you see these things coming up, and you start to identify the negative self-talk. The first step is identifying that you do it. The next step is to change your negative self-talk, because let's face it, there is nothing that you can accomplish with no negative self-talk. It really puts the damper on everything. And if you were to go up to a person that you consider to be a successful person, they wouldn't tell you that they have confidence all the time, or they might, but they'd be lying. It has nothing to do with that. They create their own confidence. And bottom line is that we all have the ability to create our own confidence. It's just that unfortunately, a lot of the times we don't do that. We allow that negative self-talk instead to stop us from moving forward, so that we can play into our fear of success and failure. A lot of people really believe that the reason why they don't move forward in their goals is because they're afraid of failing. Actually, fear of success is a really big thing. And I seem to recall a Taurus client that did bring that up many, many years ago when I was talking to her. She says, yes, I'm afraid of success because I don't know what that looks like. Something to think about, right? A lot of people actually more are afraid of success than they are failure, because of the responsibilities that success comes up with. So this week, when these challenges come up, it's a very good opportunity for you to really pay attention to how you are speaking to yourself. And if you are not speaking to yourself in a way that is helpful, then it is really important to change that communication so that you are communicating with yourself in a way that is helpful and not quite so destructive. So that's what I have for you guys this week. Moving on to Gemini, Mars continues to be in your sign and continues to be retrograde. We know it's going to be retrograde until next year, so we might as well not even talk about when that's going to happen. It's going to be retrograde for at least a couple of months. Still in a square with Jupiter and Neptune as well. Both planets focus on self as well as the past. And this is a very interesting makeup here, as of course Gemini's focus is on the home, although Mars is right on the cusp of focus on the home and those you love, your family also. This is an interesting little dilemma here, I guess we're gonna, for lack of a better way of putting it, because oftentimes we find ourselves pulled between self-care and care of others. And many Geminis, especially female Geminis, tend to put everything on everybody else, to put all of their energy on taking care of everybody else and not necessarily enough energy on self-care or taking care of yourself. And that is a bit of a challenge. It's a bit of a problem. I always look at it in terms of if I don't take care of me, how am I going to take care of all the other people that I think I need to take care of? Whether I'm responsible for taking care of them or not is neither here nor there. Okay. I won't have the energy to take care of anybody if I don't take care of me first. And yes, I'm saying this while I'm sick doing the horoscopes. But I promise that once I'm done with the work that I have today, I'm not doing anything else. It's all self-care and healing from this point forward. So yes, obviously you have to take care of your responsibilities, but you do need to put yourself on that list, first on that list, first on that list. You think about it like when you're on an airplane and the stewardess is going through and she's telling you about the oxygen mask, and they always say if you have a child with you to put your mask on first, and then you help the child or the individual that needs help with their mask. And the reason they tell you that is because if this person is having difficulties, they're going to continue to have difficulties. They need your help. If you run out of oxygen, your ability to help them has an expiration because you can't breathe. And now the situation that you're going through takes over being able to help that individual. And when you're talking about a child, it's going to be really hard for them to figure it out. So you always put your mask on first. That way you're breathing in oxygen, and then you can help the individual who needs the help. It's very much in the same way. If you don't take care of your needs, you just won't have energy to be able to take care of anybody else's needs. And if something goes wrong, you're going to feel bad about it. Gemini or not, you're going to feel bad about it. So first things first, you need to take care of you. And Jupiter's retrograde position, bringing a little bit of an element of the past into this, is really showing you instances where you didn't take care of yourself first and it didn't work out for you. So this is why this is such a very important lesson. Now, right at the beginning of the week with the moon in Libra, this creates a grand trine. Now, Mars and Saturn are in a trine all week long. The grand trine is only one day, but we're going to kick off the week with it. And I think that's a really good place to kick off the week. Saturn's focus again is on self. So this is coming up a lot for you guys. Self-care is really important. Moon's focus is on finances, renewal, and growth. So it could be finances, could be renewal and growth, could be both, honestly. We're looking at self-care as a priority here because everything is pointing towards self-care. And this time of year, with all the germs going around, like the little colds and stuff like that, self-care is also even more important because everybody around you is going to be sick. If you don't take care of you and make sure that you build up your defenses, that's probably going to happen to you too. And if you're a wife or a mother, chances are nobody's there to take care of you but you anyways. So you might as well just get ahead of it, if that makes sense. With the moon's focus on finances or even growth and renewal, I really feel that in many cases for you guys, this week really is all about looking at your financial situation, how much you give away, how much you put towards other people, and how much are you actually putting towards yourself and your own needs. Now, this is a very common problem. I can't tell you in the past how many times I've gone for cheap food to save money, not taken my vitamins because I can't afford them because somebody else needs something. Again, this is your health. And if you're getting to your mid 40s like I am and above, you need to take more steps towards making sure that you're healthy than you did when you were younger. So I really feel that it comes down to being in a position at some point this week where you feel like you have needs, but you can't afford to take care of your needs because other people have needs. First of all, if you have minor children, of course, they're going to come first. Outside of that, in all honesty, everything else is up for negotiation. We're just going to put it that way. So again, this is not about banging your fist on the table and saying, I need to come first. No, you don't have to tell anybody that you come first. It's very simple. You put yourself first, and then everybody, and then you're able to take care of everybody else. So that's what I have for you guys this week. Moving on to a Cancer, focus is on your day-to-day schedule this week, although there is a bit of an element of those that you love. Yes, I am sick. Pardon my sick voice. Luckily, videos aren't contagious, right? No, it's not COVID. Pallas Athene is influencing your sign this week, as well as the dark moon, the Lilith, which is on the cusp of those you love, which is where that influence is coming in. And when we're talking about our personal schedule here and bringing that element of those you love into it, it can go one of two ways. One, you have specific things that you want to do and other people are getting in the way of that. Or two, you're not incorporating enough time spent with those that you love. And therefore, you need to spend a little bit more time, especially if you're going through a very difficult problem right now. A lot of us we make the mistake of, I have to handle this all on my own. I'm an adult, so I should be able to handle this all on my own. It's noble of you, but there isn't a human being that can do everything on their own. And trust me when I say this, because I'm one of the most independent people you're ever going to meet. The truth of the matter is that even I need help. Everybody needs help every now and then. And so bottom line here is, I feel like because Pallas Athene is very much focused on your day-to-day schedule, Pallas Athene being the warrior queen, if you are going to step into a leadership role or you are going to take control over specific things that you need to take control of, you want to limit the number of times people infiltrate your time. And Cancers don't necessarily like to say no. They don't necessarily like to hurt other people's feelings. So they sacrifice themselves a lot. And I feel that this week it's really important not to do it. If you have important things that need to get done on your schedule, make sure that they get done, because emotionally that causes a problem when it's hanging over your head and you still haven't got it done. And that's I mean, it affects everybody like that, but I think Cancers really take that to a whole different emotional level. So this week, very important if you have important things on your schedule. And when I say important things on your schedule, I'm not saying that it's other people's important stuff, okay? I'm talking about your important stuff on your schedule. My Cancer sun is an artist, wants to have time to sit down and do art, and that takes time. You gotta let the creativity flow. You know, bottom line is, if that's important to you, that's on your schedule, and you don't want anybody to infiltrate that either. So it doesn't have to be what society says is important. It's what's important for you. That's what matters. So that's what I have for you guys this week. And we're going to move on to Leo. We have nothing, nada, zero, nothing focused on Leo this week, which is not a bad thing, trust me. And we continue to have focus on relationships this week as well. What's coming up from me with this around you guys? First of all, it's a holiday and it's Thanksgiving. And so, of course, if we're going to, whether you avoid your family or not, this is usually the week where you can't do that. There's always, it's the holidays. So most of us wind up spending that with family, whether we want to or not. If you're lucky, you do want to. And so I feel like because there's so much opportunity to for togetherness this week, it's really a prime opportunity to look at some of your relationships maybe in a little bit of a different way. We all have those difficult relationships, those people that are hard to get along with, and or we just don't mesh well or resonate well. But this is also a good opportunity to change the way you have a conversation. If you notice, most relationships get stuck in communication patterns. They always communicate in the same way over and over again. And then you never get anywhere. It's the definition of insanity. It's basically expecting different results without changing what you're actually doing. That is the definition of insanity. And this week is a prime opportunity to throw that definition right out the window and instead take a look at the relationship in a different light. Not necessarily the way it is, the way they act, who they are, who you are, how you act. Although looking at yourself to see where you could be part of the relationship problem is always a good idea, because we all are in one way, shape, or form. But this is looking more at the person and understanding the person and where the person is coming from, and less about how they act or how they talk or the things that they say, etc., etc., etc. When you take the time to understand the other person a little bit more, it doesn't excuse their behavior, especially if it's abusive behavior, but it does give you the opportunity to understand a little bit more about why the person is the way that they are. And it may actually give you a little bit more sympathy for that person as well. You're not so much looking at the person as just a mean person, but you're understanding that this person has been through it as well. And I have been in this situation myself. And I have a really good example of this. I had a stepfather. He was not a nice man. I'm not going to get into too many details about why he was not a nice man. But as a child, I just looked at him as an evil man and didn't understand why he was an evil man. As an adult, I started to understand from other people that he was very abused by his mother. And because he was very abused by his mother, he took it out on all women, regardless of what age they were. And while that's wrong to do, and I don't excuse his behavior, I also have a chance to understand that this was not directed at me. It was directed at every female that came into his view, I guess, or every female that he encountered, because he was trying to counteract his own pain. And for a lot of us, that's what we do. So you may find instances like that where you realize that people are actually just reacting to things, to experiences that they themselves have gone through. Again, it doesn't excuse the behavior, but it does help you understand where they're coming from. So that's what I have for you guys this week. Moving on to Virgo, we have focuses on relationships for Virgo as well this week, and we continue to have series influencing Virgo. Also, this week, yes, I'm a little bit sick. I apologize if I sound kind of weird. Ceres is known as the Great Mother. She is a dwarf planet that does exist in our universe, in our solar system. And being known as the Great Mother, she has a very maternal influence. And I feel like how this plays out for you guys this week is sort of identifying where you tend to be a caretaker to certain people, whether you're doing it for the right reasons or the wrong. Now, identifying where you are being a caretaker is good, because a lot of times for many of us, we put ourselves in the position of being mother to people who are not our responsibility. And this is really what comes out of this week, is really giving yourself an opportunity to see whether you are putting more energy into a particular relationship than you need to be putting into it. We've all been there, especially females. I don't think we can help it. To be honest with you, I think it's just who we are and how we are. But that doesn't mean that we should be doing it either. When we can identify where we're putting so much energy into a relationship that the other person just isn't putting a lot into. And we're not just talking about love relationships. We're talking about parents and children. We're talking about friendships. We're talking about acquaintances. We're talking about other family members. We're talking about every single relationship you could possibly have. This is just what happens. By identifying where you're putting too much energy into those relationships, you can place some boundaries. And by placing boundaries, it really helps you to maybe put that really important energy towards something else. Because a lot of times we are sacrificing for these relationships and not getting a lot out of it, merely so we could use them as an excuse to not focus on what we need to be focusing on. So, with that being said, we've all been there, we've all done that. And because we've all been there and done that, it's really easy to identify it. So take some time this week to make sure that you're not putting yourself in the position of martyrdom, basically. I know that's that Libra thing and not necessarily a Virgo thing, but we all have those martyr tendencies. So that's what I have for you guys this week. Moving on to Libra, focuses on finances this week, and we're going to kick off the week with the moon in your sign in a grand trine with Mars and Saturn as well. Saturn's focus is on self. Mars's focus is right on the cusp of the home and those that you love. And we're talking about emotions, of course, with the moon, focused on finances. Let me just put it out there, okay? Things economically are hard. They've always been hard, but they seem to be getting a heck of a lot harder these days than they were. And one of the issues that I know has come up around me and my Libra husband a lot is the fact that we've worked so hard, did our responsibility, raised our children, sacrificed our own wants and needs numerous times for those kids. They're all grown now. We're like, woohoo, we can spend our money on ourselves, and all of a sudden everything just skyrocketed and we still can't afford anything. It's really frustrating. And I feel like this is really one of those things that's going to come up for you guys this week, is the feeling that no matter how hard you work, the money just comes in and it goes. There's a different way of looking at that, of course, which is that you're taking care of your responsibilities and you have a roof over your head and your bills are paid and your car is paid for and you can put gas in it and all of those things. But after a while, it does get hard to continue to look at it in that way. I understand. Saturn's focus is on self and reminds you of your responsibility to you first, everybody else afterwards. And if it is something that is really something that you should be doing for yourself, you should not be putting it on the back burner, even if you have a family and other responsibilities. I am just going to put that out there right now. We have to take care of our needs first, and everybody else's needs afterwards, but not necessarily to the point where we're only thinking of our own needs. This is hard for Libras because Libras are self-sacrificing people. It's in their nature to self-sacrifice. It is not in their nature to put themselves first, and it's very uncomfortable to put themselves first. So this is not going to be easy, but it is necessary. And the more you do that, the easier it is to put yourself first. You want to avoid going to the extreme of I'm more important than anybody else, of course. Remember, you're a Libra. It's all about balance, and balance means you stand in the middle of the teeter-totter to balance those two sides out. The moon moves on out of your sign, things calm down, still focused on finances. It is a really good opportunity for you to take the time right now to really plan out your financial goals. Now, if you're a Libra that has not done this before, you are shortchanging yourself. We have to make financial goals. Otherwise, we just sit and spin in the same place over and over and over again. And if you've never made financial goals, you will understand what that sitting and spinning means. So that's what I have for you guys this week. Moving on to Scorpio, the sun officially leaves Scorpio, end of Scorpio season, beginning of crazy Sagittarius season, which is always fun. But we do have the moon coming into your sign also on Tuesday, moving into a T-square with Saturn and Uranus for about a day, and then it moves on, and then things start to smooth out and quiet down for you guys a little bit now that all of the planets are officially out of your sign. Focus is on long-term goals this week, and the moon's influence over long-term goals is pretty interesting because the moon, of course, has a very emotional influence. And the challenge is, do you take care of your responsibilities to yourself, or do you take care of your responsibilities to other people? This is a very common question for most people, and Uranus being part of this is also focused on how you think. And the very interesting thing about this is if you don't, if your mind isn't promoting self-worth for you, it is really going to be detrimental to your long-term goals. It's hard to motivate yourself when your own communication to yourself is negative. We'll put it that way. And so this is a very good opportunity for you to identify where your brain goes to. Does it go to direct and negative self-talk? If that is the case, it is time for you to take control over that. And you can absolutely take control over that. As we move on in the week, we don't have quite so much of an influence as the planets move out of your sign, and things start to quiet down a little bit in terms of planet activity, which is nice, which means our focus is just on long-term goals. First of all, don't make your goals so big that there's no way that you're going to be able to get through all the steps in order to achieve these goals. But make sure your goals line up with what you feel is the most important focus for you. Of course, having goals for your family is a good thing, but you need personal goals too. I feel like everybody who has a family has an identity problem. We forget about ourselves as individual people, and we look at ourselves as husbands and wives and mothers and fathers and sons and daughters, rather than the individual. And while, yes, of course, you don't want to ignore your family, it's really important that your personal goals have everything to do with your own growth and success, and not necessarily what everybody else expects from you. So that's what I have for you guys this week. And we're going to move on to Sagittarius, because there is a party in Sagittarius this week, especially, of course, as the sun moves into Sagittarius this week on Tuesday. And Venus and Mercury are in a perfect conjunction, literally in the same place in Sagittarius this week as well. Finally, it's been so boring in Sagittarius, and boredom and Sagittarius are not two things that go together very well at all. We're going to start with a grand sextile as the sun moves into your sign, moving into a grand sextile with Jupiter, Neptune, and Pluto. Now, grand sextiles are really positive, really good aspects that are very helpful. With your focus on long-term career goals, Pluto's focus is on the inner closet, so some of the emotional trauma stuff that we go through, and Neptune and Jupiter are focused on self, as well as a little bit of an element on the past, but we're very more so focused on self. This really shows us something that's very important in terms of your goals, specifically your career goals. They have to meet your needs, not everybody else's needs, but your needs. Yes, granted, they have to meet other people's needs as well, but it's really more important that they meet your needs first, and not necessarily everybody else's. That secret closet in there, this is a very helpful aspect, and yet we have this sort of inner trauma thing going on in there, but your inner trauma is actually very helpful. I can't tell you how many times I have said how grateful I am to have had a traumatic childhood with examples of abusive individuals, because it has helped me in some way now. I'm not exactly thrilled that it was that way, and I do compare my childhood to others and wish that I had childhoods that were more in line with those. But at the same time, I can also see how having a wonderful, loving childhood is not always the best thing for an individual either. You build too much trust in people that you should not be trusting, for example. So I feel like in many cases, what's happening for you guys here is you're eliminating some of that trauma. The triggers are coming up, you're identifying it, you're saying, no, I don't want that trauma to hold me back anymore. You release it, and by releasing it, you leave room for growth and forward movement and expansion. So the bottom line here is, it is time to focus on your long-term career goals, but you got to get out of your own way when you do it, because if you're standing in the way and creating excuses, it's really not going to be helpful for you. So that's what I have for you guys this week. And we're going to move on to Capricorn. Capricorn is focused on that secret closet and a little bit of focus on those who support us as well. Capricorn and support don't go hand in hand. I don't know very many Capricorns who actually ask for help. They don't, Capricorns are very independent people. They can do everything themselves. They don't need anybody. Which is not entirely true, but we'll go ahead and let them think it is, okay? But your support system, everybody needs a support system at some point in their lives. Even my almost 90-year-old Capricorn grandmother is needing a support system now. And it was a hard lesson for her, but she managed to learn it, and that's really all that matters. Pluto continues, of course, to be in Capricorn, and in a direct motion actually is showing you that your past traumas really do have a lot of power. There's a lot of learning experiences in those past traumas as well, that those that don't have those past traumas wouldn't necessarily have learned that lesson when you think about it. Pluto's in a grand sextile with the Sun, Jupiter, and Neptune as well, giving you more power to those past traumas and showing you how you can use that power specifically towards your long-term career goals as well as to yourself. In all honesty, I believe that my past traumas made me who I am today, and not necessarily in a bad way, because I chose the direction that it was going to go in. Now, a lot of times that doesn't happen, but we all have the ability to make that choice. It is just what it comes down to, whether or not we're actually making the choice or not. Really, that's all it comes down to. So if you're making the choice to use that to your advantage, to push yourself forward, but not necessarily to hold other people back, then you're on the right track. In terms of changes to your career goals or just creating career goals right now, you do want to be aware of past fears or fears that have roots in past situations and manage those. You don't want those infiltrating your decisions ever. It's never a good thing. So you do want to be aware of that. And that is what I have for you guys this week. Moving on to Aquarius, focus is on self and self-care this week with a direct Saturn reminding us of our responsibilities to ourselves. To be honest with you, I am an Aquarian, okay? I could be going on my own personal experience here, but I think Aquarians are fairly good at self-care in terms of understanding how important it is for them as well as everybody else around them. But we also want to look at what self-care really is. It's not bubble baths and emotional band-aids on emotional problems. Okay, we're going to put it that way. Self-care really is about your emotional, physical, and mental health, and your own responsibility to those things is really important. Now, I hear a lot in the world, and if this offends somebody, I'm really sorry, but I hear a lot in the world of people saying, well, I am the way that I am because this person was like this to me and they made me that way. And that is, in my opinion, a bunch of baloney. I have been victimized by more than one person in my life several times over. I don't blame them. I blame myself for my reaction to that, unless it happened in childhood, in which case I blame, I can only blame myself for holding on to it and allowing that to make my adult decisions now, which I do not. I used to as a young adult because I didn't know any better. Now that I do, I don't do that. That is my responsibility to myself. And even if I blame somebody else for the problem, I'm still responsible for my actions, period. And I feel like that's really what the focus is for us Aquarians this week. The other thing is we continue to have that square with Uranus, and Uranus is all about focus on the mind and how you think, and how you think really has a huge impact over your actions. Because if you're full of negative self-talk, especially negative self-talk that was planted there by somebody else, it's absolutely our responsibility to reprogram that. If you don't reprogram that and keep it there, again, you're not getting anywhere. So it's like being stuck in quicksand. The more you move, the more you sink. And when you're stuck in quicksand, the easiest thing to do is to stop moving so that you don't sink any further. And then use your brain. We're Aquarians now. We're brilliant, right? Use your brain to look around to see if there's something that you can grab to pull yourself out, if you can call for help and maybe somebody's there to help you. There's a million things that we can do without fighting against the problem. When we fight against the problem, we seem to lose every single time. So this week, mind your thoughts. If you got a lot of negative self-talk going on, chances are that's not helping the situation. You're responsible for reprogramming that. It's your computer when you think about it. Why would you let somebody else program your computer? Doesn't make any sense. Even more than it doesn't make sense that somebody else's voice is speaking negative BS to you. So that's what I have for you guys this week. And finally, we're moving on to Pisces. We continue to have Jupiter as well as Neptune in Pisces. Both are retrograde, and focus continues to be on self. Actually, not continues. It wasn't last week. It is this week. Focus is on self. Jupiter and Neptune are moving into a conjunction. They're not quite in a conjunction yet, but they are moving towards, at least Jupiter is moving pretty quickly towards Neptune, I guess, which will create a conjunction at some point. But Neptune is all about our deep-seated emotional stuff, as well as it represents our intuitive abilities. And Jupiter is all about expansion and growth. Both planets in retrograde, especially Jupiter in retrograde, kind of feels like it's stunting your growth in a way, if that makes sense. But when you're talking about focus on self and indeed your own responsibilities to yourself, sometimes we have to stop the growth process for a bit in order to understand why certain aspects of our personality are difficult for us. And yes, we do have challenges with aspects of our personalities. Everybody does. I think that there's a lot of people who maybe are a little bit more emotional than others that tend to beat themselves up because they have these deficiencies in their personalities. And it's not about beating yourself up, it's about learning to use those deficiencies to your advantage instead of them holding you back. So for instance, everybody's always talking about stubbornness being a horrible thing. And yes, it can be if it's holding you back. If you're stubborn about sticking to something, you're using that negative tendency in a positive way, which takes the negativity out of it, really. So I'm a stubborn person and I use it to my advantage, and I let it get in my way. I just choose each individual time which way I'm going to go, even though in many cases I know that it's not necessarily in my best interest to do that. So that's one thing. Both planets do continue to be squared with Mars. Mars focuses on the home, and I feel like the way that this plays out in many cases is we human beings are really good at blaming other people for our deficiencies, and that's not necessarily true. Yes, there are difficult relationships out there, and if you are in one of those difficult relationships, that plays a part in it, but it is still your responsibility. That's why focus is on you, not them this time. It is still your responsibility to find a way through that. And it does not mean that you accept and deal with people being the way that they are, especially if the relationship isn't two-sided like it should be. But it is your responsibility to either find a way to navigate through the problem so that you can find a solution, or in some cases, it is your responsibility to evaluate whether or not this relationship really is working for you. So it can go either way. I think most of us are afraid to take a step that makes a change. Not to say that you guys are afraid to do that, but I think that we all are from time to time. And so it's really important for you to identify when that's happening, when fear is taking over, and to sit with that fear, to understand why you're afraid, what you're afraid of, and put it in its rightful place, because we can't let fear hold us back either. Sometimes things change, and that's just how it is. And there's really not a whole lot we can do about that. But we do have control over how we react to that change. And that's really where our power lies. So that's what I have for you guys this week. And that's what I have for everybody. Thank you for coming and hanging out during the horoscopes. I apologize. These are probably the quickest horoscopes I've ever done, but I am not feeling good and it's really hard on my throat. I just wanted to make sure that you guys had your horoscopes and I got through them as quickly as I possibly could for my own sake. I'm sure they'll be better next week. I'm Melissa Bruce, the Heavy Metal Psychic. Thanks for watching, and I will see you guys next week. Have a wonderful Thanksgiving to my American brothers and sisters. I hope it's a wonderful holiday for you guys. And I'll see you guys next week. Make it a good week, everybody.